Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Babbling Irons channel. Today, another rumour going around of a potential managerial change-up this summer, and someone that's actually won the Premier League before in Roberto Mancini. So we're going to break it down, let you know where the news has come from, and give our opinions on whether it would be a good move for West Ham. So, Mike, again, another manager kind of circling around the club, as there's probably going to be from now until the summer. This one being the former Manchester City manager, Roberto Mancini, obviously the manager of the Italian national team at the moment. He's won the Premier League before. He's also won a few other trophies in his previous period in Italy, which we'll get into. What do you make of this rumour before we get into kind of breaking down the article and what we can take from it?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think this rumor actually came out probably about a month or so ago that there was potential for Mancini. It's not one I'm surprised about. It's at that point where people know Moyes' position is not untenable, but it's rocky to say the least.
Yeah,
and you've got a manager who's been at Italy for a while, clearly wants to get back into club management. So I can imagine, via a combination of agents and intermediaries, it's a kind of putting out there that he's a manager that is willing to get back into club football. Obviously, associating themselves with a club that is clearly looking at. So again, it's setting a bar as to I'm willing to come in at a club that's maybe not at the top if they've got a project for me to go to. So
yeah,
it's whether it's a valid interest from West Ham or valid interest from him. It's an interesting fact that we were picked because it kind of sets a benchmark as to where he's willing to come in as a manager and how he's looking maybe for a job with less pressure but more long-term potential gains.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll break it down shortly. But the first kind of initial tweet came out this morning. People were picking up the source as CM.com, an Italian outlet, saying West Ham could make a move to appoint Mancini this summer. The 58-year-old wants to return to the Premier League and wants to join, in quotes, an ambitious project. It would demand 8 million a season for this to happen. So I think you're right there. He wants to come back to the Premier League, and he may be looking at something like a project to develop and make his own. And what better project than West Ham, eh? But yeah, I think overall, I think he's interested in coming back to Premier League football. He's had his time in the national team, and he maybe thinks he wants a different challenge. And he's still relatively young, 58. He's not, say, when we brought in Pellegrini, who was much older. I think David Moyes is a bit older as well. So it's an interesting appointment because he did win the title with Man City. Obviously, that very iconic season of the Aguero goal that I'm sure everyone remembers. So let's take a look at the actual article itself and what it highlighted about West Ham in there, because sometimes it can be easy to take out of context. So the part in the article it mentions about West Ham, it kind of says that the Mancini is reflecting on his future and evaluates all of the options available while trying not to disappoint the fans of the Italian national team again. And in some time, he could do it with, more options to evaluate. West Ham are one of the most ambitious clubs in the Premier League, according to this article. That is basically where they're kind of getting that information from. I think they've kind of put two and two together where Mancini wants to come back to the Premier League. We're one of the most ambitious clubs or projects that he could pick up on. Do you think it would be a good fit for him? And do you think he'd be interested in that move?
I think at 8 million quid, he probably would be interested. Let's face it, Conte was interested in Tottenham. And regardless of what Tottenham fans says, Conte shouldn't have never been interested in Spurs because he's only interested in winning and winning trophies. And that may be taken as a disrespect to Spurs, but the truth of the matter is they haven't won anything in over 15 years. I'm pretty sure it's 15 years. And they've been, the perennial bridesmaid, So I don't think Conte was ever a right choice for them, really. And his football was never the right choice. But I think with Mancini, he likes to play possession-based football. Now, clearly, that's been something the club have wanted to do this season.
Yeah.
So, in that respect, it makes sense. He is a name that if you are looking to be a new owner of the club, it is certainly a way to put down a marker because you're coming in, you're removing, an institution in English football that David Moyes is, whether you like him or you hate him, he is. And you're bringing in a known Premier League winner, a very well known and respected coach and manager, someone who's won pretty much everywhere he's been and pretty much won everything he could possibly.
Well, let's quickly take a look, Mike, at what he has won, because we've got the full list here. You can see here, obviously, he won the Euros with Italy recently. Won that title with Man City in 2011-12. Obviously, won the FA Cup with them as well. And you kind of see the other Italian accolades he's got. Three-time winner of Serie A, four-time winner of the Italian Cup. Two-time winner of Super Cup. English Super Cup, Turkish Cup. Like, the list does go on there, and there's a very good CV for any manager to have, and especially what I like about it is he wants to join an ambitious project. It's not just which, well, I know the source is a little bit, maybe you have to take it with a pinch of salt, but it's not like the Pellegrini appointment, for example, where it wasn't really that motivation for him to develop a project per se. I think Mancini would be more interested in doing that at West Ham. Just a quick message to say, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, as we are posting regularly and it would really help us out. And yeah, leave a like on the video too. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, certainly. He's. I'm pretty sure. His career was quite illustrious as well, and played. For clubs that are not necessarily as well known or as big. Obviously, at the time they were quite a big team, Sampdoria, for example.
Yeah.
But he has played for teams that are less illustrious, and he has been places where there's been, I guess, less gravitas as such. But I think under a new ownership, it's certainly someone that you do and you go to kind of say it's a new era, which is what we're now doing. Again, it's someone who gains immediate respect from players. I think that's another thing. He's going to be able to make your team resolute defensively. But also that doesn't mean that you are poor in attack. He can be pragmatic, but he is open to having a team that looks to play. Italy have looked far more open under Mancini than they have under many other managers. He's also got a bit of an eye for a player, obviously with his staff. Just look at the fact that I can never pronounce his name, but Willie Notto, who obviously leads, he brought him in from an unfancied league. He's playing in Switzerland at the time. He brought him in, gave him his international debut. Ratugi, who I think we've also been, probably spelled his name completely wrong, but who we've been linked to, currently playing, I think, in Mexico. Has 2 Italian caps, followed by three to four Italian caps now, and 2 goals for Mancini. So he's willing to take risks on players, even at international level, over probably more fancied names. Again, he has already knows Emerson, and he knows obviously Scamacca as well, and he is quite fond of Scamacca. When you see the links to Mancini and potentially the links to that we've looked and we've inquired about Ratugi this summer. For this summer, it kind of you can start putting 1 and 2 together and coming up with 5. But it's interesting that the link came to the striker before, who has been given the debut by obviously Mancini. Mancini's recently been linked as well, so it's kind of the type of thing that tends to happen is, would you be interested in being manager? Who would you be interested? Who would you like to see at the club? It's those kind of things that you tend to see, and you potentially will identify 1 or 2 players, potentially even from the national team, which I wouldn't have any problems with. Italy do have some quality players coming through at the moment as well. And I think when you look at those 2 internationals call-ups that I mentioned, it again shows a manager that's not going to have a particular bias to a league. He's going to look at the player and the merits of the player themselves. Yeah. And that's what's going to decide whether they come in. It's probably going to be more of a meritocracy as opposed to no, you guys play because you are my guys. Yeah. So I think
we're used to seeing that quite a lot at West Ham. It's rare that we kind of see that kind of development, in our club, and especially under Moyes, he has the people that he likes. I know this summer we have sort of branched out a little bit with the likes of Scamacca, Aguerd, Paqueta, but in kind of the big bulk of it, Moyes won't really like to go out there. He would like to stay in the Premier League a little bit more. You've seen that with bringing in Danny Ings in the January transfer window as an example. So there was one last bit of the article that did mention about West Ham. It did say that we'd have to pay a multi-year contract worth at least 10 million euros, accompanied by a clear project. The coach asked for objectives, obviously prestigious and well-defined. So he wants that project. I think that's very clear. It's just whether he would want to come to us in the situation we're in with the owners, because we tried to get Mancini before. I remember Sullivan, inviting him to games and stuff, and he kind of pushed him aside and said no because he wasn't interested back then. And we actually went for Pellegrini. So would he then take two, be willing to do it now? Maybe, because of the European developments we've had, and potentially a new ownership could help with that. But I think by and large, I think he would be tempted, especially if we have European football next season. I think that's probably a key aspect as to whether he will come or wouldn't be interested in the move.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, most of our options are going to be hinged upon being in Europe, I do think.
And the Premier League as well.
And the Premier League, yeah, as well. Let's assume we're in the Premier League. Then there is I think a slight chance he'd be interested. If we have a European competition, it gives a bit more weight to that.
Yeah.
And again, he's going to want to see that, well, if Declan Rice is going to go, how much of that money am I going to get off his fee, and how much am I going to get as a transfer kitty, even before that sale is sanctioned? What am I getting? And obviously, he's going to want to see that there is going to be improvements to infrastructure. So again, our scouting and things like that. So
yeah,
when you look at West Ham is a huge project, but also in many ways should, again, we keep saying should new owners come in, it's almost a clean slate, because there's been such little done with West Ham over this kind of 11, 12-year period that in actual fact, anyone who comes in looking to do things like, I'm going to develop your training facilities, we're going to develop that in hand with what you want or what you feel we need, we're going to improve our analytics and recruitment team. You can bring along your team from Italy who helped you scout and find these. I know some of these players for Italy as well.
Yeah,
you start to maybe do things like that, then it becomes much more appealing, because you are creating an environment in which they feel they can thrive and which they can start to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be an interesting appointment. I'd definitely be on board with it. I think that the signs are there that he is interested in that kind of development, and he will develop within the club. And he will look at players, like you mentioned, through his scouting, through actual, looking at players, and he won't be afraid to maybe bring them in. So again, that would be a fresh positive to what we're used to seeing, especially with the youth setup as well, which is again at the moment pretty on edge with players, not really getting the chances to show their development. So what do you guys think? Let us know if you'd be happy with Mancini. Do you think it's a realistic appointment right now with the situation we're in? Are we being a little bit ambitious? Let us know in the comments. Make sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. And Mike, until next time.
Come on, you Irons.